Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So what we're going to do today is we are going to make a homemade Easter basket. Now, the mold that I'm using, I made myself, and there will be a video coming out shortly on that for my channel members. But first things first, we have our Nick Pro crystal clear finish resin, and that's what I'm doing. I mixed up about 200 milliliters of it. Not sure how much this mold is going to take because I've never used it before. And then I just put the teeniest, tiniest little bit of my Rolio Pearl White Super Sparkle in there just for some kind of added shine and shimmer. And then I'm going to divide this resin up into 4 different cups. Now, seeing as I've not used this mold before, I honestly don't even know if it's going to work how I want it to. But setting that aside, I want this to be transparent, and I'm going to use alcohol inks to create the effects that I want. And I've picked 4 different colors. I'm going to use a pink, a purple, lemon yellow, and turquoise. I don't want the colors to all kind of merge together. I want them to stay separate, but I want it to be kind of like almost like a tie-dye type effect in there. So that's what I'm going for. So what I'm going to do first, obviously, is I've got to mix up my colors. So I put in about 5 drops here of the pink. I'm not sure, like I wanted a little bit darker, but I didn't want to put too much in. So I am going to add a little bit more because I do want it just a little bit darker. It's kind of hard to see because immediately when I stuck my popsicle stick in there, it dyed the popsicle stick pink. So I'm just kind of going by as I lifted up the resin that's falling off of it for my color. Next up, we have the purple, and I realize on your screen, as usual, it's going to look blue. It's not. It's a really pretty kind of violet type purple. And it's the same with this. I'm going to add a little bit more to it just to darken it up just a little bit. I want the colors to be very bright, very vivid. I want you to be able to see them. I am a little worried, though, about the yellow in there and it mixing with the pink or the purple and, getting that muddied color. But I'm hoping that it kind of stays how I want it to stay. But I guess we'll see. And I know I could wait a little bit longer for it to thicken up some and not move as much, but you know me, I'm not that patient, so I'm not going to do that. Okay, going in with the turquoise, and then lastly we have this yellow, and I do just I go in a lot heavier with the yellow because it is I feel like with your yellows, when you do it with the alcohol inks anyway, that you have to put in more than you would normally put in to get that color the way that you want it. All right, so now going in, and I am just kind of pouring these colors where I want them. Now I realize that they're going to move and they've got to go down into, the hole for the basket. But I kind of want to try and keep it where I'm putting it, if that makes sense. Like, I know I'm going to get movement. I know that these colors are probably going to merge some, especially once I kind of pull the sides of it open to get that resin down in there. But I'm hoping not so much. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. So after I pour it in here, I'm letting it kind of flow down to the bottom of the mold on its own. But this mold, like the sides are super, super thin. And I need it to go in, and I need to make sure that I'm not going to get any air bubbles. So I am just going to kind of pull it apart, hope for the best that it's going to go in there. Now, I need to go in and kind of go around all the 90-degree corners. And this mold, like the top part of the basket, has kind of like the scalloped edges. And I don't want bubbles to get trapped there. So I do need to go in there with a tool and kind of work up any bubbles that may be stuck. But at the same time, I don't want to mix up these colors towards the top of the basket, So it's kind of scary to go in there and do it because I don't want to muddy these colors. But I'm going to get a toothpick and I'm just going to kind of ever so slightly go in there with it very, very carefully because I don't want to scratch the mold either, and kind of just hope that what I'm doing is going to be enough so that I don't get a lot of air bubbles and all that stuff trapped in there. So, just going to do this, and I'm trying to kind of, I realized that when the colors go down there and when I pulled it apart that the colors may have shifted in there, but I'm trying to kind of go where the colors are and not move it around too much. At least I started trying that way. And then towards the end, I was like, well, I don't even know if it's going to work, so I'm just going to kind of go for it. Hit it with my heat gun real quick just to pop any bubbles that may be in there on the top and leave this baby to cure. All right, so 24 hours later, here we are. Now it's time to see if this mold actually works. And let me tell you, this mold is a heavy boy. Like, it is probably the chunkiest, heaviest mold that I own. It is no joke. So I am worried because it's a basket, and to get that void in there, it's super, super thick, that I don't ruin it trying to take it out, and that I don't ruin my piece either. Because at this point, the resin, it's really thin, so it's still super soft and bendy, and I don't know. I was just, this whole demold process for me was not fun. It was actually super stressful this time because I didn't know if it was going to work, how it was going to turn out, or if I was going to waste all that silicone that I used and ruin my mold. But here we are. It came out. I got really lucky. The colors didn't muddy up at all. I think it's beautiful. Now, because this was a handmade mold, and I'm no expert at making molds by any means, and this was the kind of a first for me as far as the size of the mold and what I did with it and how I made it. So the edges were kind of meh, and they need to be trimmed off. So I just going in with my deburring tool and kind of getting off that excess resin that over poured, slash my mold not being the greatest, slash, all the other things. But all in all, it did turn out really, really nice. Now, this is not a high gloss mold. It's more of kind of like a semi gloss. So it's got its shiny bits, but it's not as shiny as some molds get. And it's also got a texture to it. So it's not, in the screen, it looks like it's like messed up. It's not. It is texturized. That's just the way that it turned out because of what I used. And it's fine. It really is. It kind of just adds a little bit to it. Now, after I'm done doing this, I do have some pieces that I made off to the side, and they are in another members only video if you're interested in seeing how I made them. Now we're going to go in, and I'm just going to get my paint pen and kind of go over the edges in silver, and then on the outer edge of it, I'm just going to add just the tiniest bit of silver going around that outer edge as well, just to kind of tie in with the 3 eggs that, well, I'm going to use 4, but 3 of them have more silver on them. Kind of tie that all in together and just make it look a little bit more cohesive, I think. So, going over with this real quick, and I think it adds a lot to it. I'm glad I did it because at first I was kind of like, I didn't know if I wanted to or not, but I'm glad that I did. It finished off the edges nicely. They are texturized as well, so it's not like some super smooth thing. But I did get lucky, though. I didn't have an issue with a lot of air bubbles, so I was really, really happy about that, because that was one of my main concerns, was the way that the scalloped edges go, and what I used to make the mold with is not like super flat and thin. It does have that texture to it, so I worried that I was going to get a lot of air bubbles, and I didn't. I mean, a few here and there, but they're itty bitty, and you can't really even tell that they're there, so that's a plus. Now we're just going with the kind of like not quite halfway on the tip of the chiseled edge of this paint pen, just to kind of make a thin line just around the outer edge of these scalloped edges, and then we're done. Few touch-ups where my hand kept hitting while the paint was wet, and we're going to let this dry and move on to the next step. Now, I need to create a handle. So I thought that this pretty purple ribbon would look nice. And what I'm going to do is, it's a really fat ribbon. I think it's like 2 inches. So I decided that because it's too thick for this basket to have it open. So I'm going to fold it in half, and kind of where the wiring is on it, I'm just going to get my hot glue gun, and I'm going to go over that with just the littlest bit of hot glue, because I don't want that like hard crunchiness on it if I can stop it. So just a little bit, just to kind of hold it together and make this handle for this basket. Okay, so it's pretty much done. One little piece left to glue on, and then trying to decide what side I want to put it on. There was one side that I kind of messed up when I was doing the scalloped edges, like the edges on the side, and I kind of want to put it over there to kind of hide it a little bit. So I decided that the best thing to do would be to kind of just hot glue it on all the way down to the bottom, and just figuring out where the middle is. I don't know why I even measured it, because that was just dumb. I could have just counted how many little scallops are on there and went with that. But, I tried to be precise and realized that it was not the easier way to go. So hot glue it on there, and then I'm going to do the other side, and then I'm not going to leave it like this. I want to hide that hot glued and the edges and just kind of put it all together nicer. But first I got to get this other side hot glued onto it. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then we're going to mess with these eggs that I made. Now, I decided that because the little ones were too little to hide that entire area, that I'm going to go with the big guy. Unfortunately, I only made one like this in this color scheme. Now, hindsight, it would have been better if I had a plan when I was making these initially and made them kind of all like one color scheme, and I didn't with the little chick. So he kind of doesn't really, like, he goes to an extent, but not really. But it's fine. It'll be fine. It doesn't look horrible, but he kind of, he's the black sheep of the eggs. It's okay though. So now for these two little ones, I decided that this is going to be the front of my basket, and I'm just going to put these two guys right here. So a little bit of hot glue on the back and plop them on. And then I want to add some flowers to it. So I decided that I want one in the middle of these two eggs. So I'm going to do that. Now, I don't know how I feel about the back of the big eggs, because they're plain, because when I made them, I used white resin, and they're just kind of eh. So I thought, well, I can put some flowers there too, and kind of sort of not really hide it, but take your eye away from it and focus more on the flowers instead. So I just got some of these flowers, and I'm just taking the tiniest bit of hot glue, and I'm going to glue it to the sides on the front side of the basket and on the back side, just to kind of even it out and make it look more well thought out, I guess. Even though it kind of wasn't from the get. Like, I had an idea of what I wanted the basket to look like ish, but at the time that I was creating the eggs, I really didn't have a color scheme completely in mind. So it's kind of a mishmash, but I think it works. I think it turns out super cute. So yeah, I just got to put these last two flowers on, and then that's a wrap on this one, guys. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Stay tuned for the glamour shots. They come out really nice. And I will see you guys on Saturday for the next one. Love ya. Bye.